Hey guys, it's Yorkie here with some more Project Cars 2 gameplay, and today we have round 5 from the AOR GT3 Tier 1 PC League, and this time we are racing at the Dubai Autodrome GP circuit with commentary from myself and Fizzy.
Hello everyone and welcome to another live broadcast for the AOR PC GT3 League on Project Cars 2. This is Tier 1 of course, and I'm Fizzy and I will be one of your commentators for this round 5 of the season. And of course, joining me again in the commentary box, it is the Yorkinator, Yorkie065.
Yes, hello, welcome everybody to the stream. We have a humongous pack of cars
what's going on there?
Just coming out of the pit lane all at once. Hopefully they manage to try and sort themselves out. Wow.
I've never seen that big a rush at the pits ever before.
Yeah, last week we had a pretty big rush out the pits because it was wet, but this time I think it's just a whole ton of people happened to hit the go to track button at pretty much exactly the same time. But yes, I am Yorkie. I am going to be joining Fizzy, and we are going to be bringing you the action from Tier 1 here in Dubai. Should prove to be a very interesting, fun and exciting race because we are racing at night. So let's kick it off with this 10-minute qualifying session.
Indeed, a nice time race for the first time this season. Very exciting indeed. It certainly looks sexy, I have to say. The color of the cars coming out even more prominently than usual in these trackside lighting. But yeah, it's this round 5 of the season. We're nearly at the halfway point already. It feels like yesterday that we started with the first round, to be honest, but we're already 4 races down. And an interesting championship situation in a way, even though we have Jadier at the top of the pile with a relatively healthy lead, 39 points down to Leon the Sick One in second place. But Leon the Sick One is on a run at the moment. He has won the previous 2 rounds. And he would have been right up there with Jadier if he had not DNF'd in round 1. So Leon is one to look out for, to challenge Jadier once again here in Dubai. Suomi picked up a second place last week to take him up to 3rd place in the standings. And then of course Dalking, who has had his ups and downs this season, in 4th place, and ADA sitting 5th in the championship at the moment. But as for this qualifying session here at Dubai, Yorkie, what do we need to look for? Are there any particular cars you think that will have the edge around this particular circuit?
Oh, interesting. The track isn't that high above sea level, so the guys should be on relatively level playing field there when it comes to naturally aspirated versus turbos. Obviously, the Lamborghini is a very popular car choice in this season, so I imagine that it will probably be pretty strong here, along with the Audi as well. There's a couple of good, nice long straights for a couple of the cars to stretch their legs out on. I imagine the M6 might be quite good around this circuit. Kind of seems to like nice flowing tracks, although it may struggle with some of the slower corners. But I think it'll probably just be the usual suspects who will be up near the top that will need to be watching, and Jadier, who we are currently watching at the moment, is one of them. Is also one of the first drivers to be actually setting a qualifying lap as well. Majority of drivers are behind him, so I think he's going to be the first driver to get a benchmark time in. Yeah,
and I mean, it was a crazy rush to get out of the pits for everyone, really. It seems like drivers are eager to get out on this Dubai circuit to get as many qualifying laps in as at all possible. Of course, a lot of the drivers who came out at the start will have had to back off quite substantially to find themselves some gap and space to do a clean flying lap here. But Jadier is coming towards the end of his first flying lap. He is behind a car, but not to the extent that he will hold him up in any way, shape or form. So coming around what I believe is the final corner. Let's see if I'm right. Yes, there we go. There's the main straight. So what will the benchmark be? The first car across the line is Rodders with a 156.5. Then Jadier comes in with 154.6. But even faster than him is Dalkin, putting in a 154.2 to set the early benchmark.
Yep. Came in just behind him on track. A couple more times starting to pop up onto the board as well. Suomi's now got himself up there in a provisional 3rd place at the moment. Benazili's popped himself up into 4th. Pretty much the top 4 so far are all in Lamborghinis. Villabos in the Z4 is now in 6th place as he's just been demoted by Leon the sick one, who's popped himself now up into 3rd position, is in the pits, has his windscreen wiper on. You may want to turn that off as the track is dry. Mr. Van Omen, who's had some technical issues in previous races, he just pops himself up into 3rd place, jumps back to the pits and is now getting himself back out on track in these final 5 minutes now that we've just popped under that 5-minute mark, and they're going to try and go for another lap.
Yeah, only 10 minutes of course in qualifying for this season compared to 15 in the seasons gone by, so a bit less time, a bit more pressure on every driver to get that proper alien speed time on the board. I didn't notice that we took out the first braking board going into turn 1. You know the game a little bit better than me, Yoki. Will that come back, or will that be a problem for everyone?
That'll be a problem for everyone in this session, but it will return at the start of the race. The track boards and cones and everything do get reset for the start of the race. Leon the sick one has still got his windscreen wiper going, and I've actually noticed as well as he's been driving around the circuit and a couple of other places that there's a few more track boards that have been knocked over as well.
Yeah, that's not going to help. To be honest, I know that I certainly rely on braking boards, and I can imagine this will be the same for quite a lot of these drivers, but hopefully they'll be able to cope. Not sure why. I can even hear the windscreen wiper there on Leon's car. Is he expecting rain in Dubai in the middle of the night? I'm not sure, but maybe just likes a bit of extra action in front of his Lamborghini.
Quite possibly. It's quite interesting to hear the sound is actually different for the windscreen wiper when it is dry in comparison to the wet as well. It's got a little bit more of a squeak to it. But we're on board with Jardier at the moment. He could potentially be on another lap. He does have a Lamborghini there in front of him. That's not Leon the sick one because he was a bit further up, so I believe it'll be his teammate who is it Mr. Van Orman is the other driver?
Let me have a look.
No, Mr. Van Omen's Jardier's teammate. Leon the sick one.
Oh yeah, you're right. Leon the sick one's teammate is
Tapek.
God, yes. Oh, he was so far down the table. They've had very contrasting seasons, haven't they? Leon the sick one up in 2nd place, 144 points. Tapek with 3 DNFs in 3 races, down towards the bottom with 0.
Yep, but it looks like that Jardier wasn't actually on a flying lap as he is backed off from the rear of Tapek's car to give himself a little bit more space, but he's going to be starting his lap now in a nice clean run coming out of the final turn, coming down the start finish straight to Watch's lap coming down towards turn 1. We do have a car coming out the pits, but they stay rather nicely out of the way, and Jardier has gone very, very deep there, probably missing his braking point because of the missing brake marker board.
Yeah, exactly. That could well be the reason. Or he was just feeling in the track extension mood for that particular corner, but that's not going to be a counting lap then for Jardier. He will have time to start one more after this, which at least is good for him. So I guess he'll try to get around the rest of this lap without taking any life out of his tires. As we are now watching Scott, who's a bit under pressure there, down in 18th place so far in the session. Of course, Scott, a man who we've seen up towards the, well, certainly in good positions in races throughout the season, and finished 4th last week at the Bentley. I'm not sure how that will be able to cope with this Dubai circuit. It was a unique car choice on the grid for this season. Not a lot of Bentleys about, but let's see what Scott can do.
I believe there is one other Bentley somewhere in the grid. Not 100% sure who is actually driving in the Bentley, but we've got a couple of drivers here looking to be coming through the final turn to either start a lap or complete the lap. There's only 1 minute remaining as Bo gets a little bit sideways there in the foreground of the picture. As he comes across the line now, pops himself up into 14th, seeing that Mr. Van Omen has invalidated a lap time as well as Leon the sick one somewhere along the line. That could be from earlier on in the session though, rather than what is happening just now. So we've got a couple of drivers in the pits. Mr. Van Omen's not going to improve his time. CJB, who's currently holding a provisional pole position at the moment, has also gone back to the pit lane. He's gone at 154.212. He's holding pole by 11 hundredths of a second to Dowking at the moment. It's very, very close here at the top. Villabos is also in the pits. Dahidi, Nagrom, JK, and now also Shooter 80 have also completed their laps, so we will not be seeing any improvements by any of those drivers. Jardier is in the first sector for his lap, so we'll have to catch back up with him later on. Dowking looks to be coming through the final turn. Is he going to improve on his lap time as the checker flag now waves? And Dowking does not.
Man, he only needed 11 thousandths, but he didn't find them. CJB also back in the pits. And Lynn, the sick one, still, scraping the wall there. He's off the track. Interesting line from him. He's down in 7th place at the moment. We know he can do better than that. He won't have a lot of time to do it. This is when it matters. ADAs now as well in 8th position. Both Leon and ADAs could look at a very good position if they can find a few more tenths on their lap. And then coming around that very long left-hander. What is that? What?
That's a lot of. That's a lot of the. They're almost like hay bales, but they're not hay bales.
Who put them there?
It could well be Leon because he's driving around off the circuit at the moment.
Yeah,
I think someone may need to have a word with him later on after the race to make sure that he's not doing that and potentially impeding any drivers. But it doesn't really look like anyone else has improved in their times. I know Jardier didn't. He decided to go back to the pits. So Scott is the last person on track and is coming into the pit lane.
Indeed. So we have our confirmed grid then for round 5 out of 10 in season 11 here at Dubai Autodrome. Waiting out for the timer to tick down, and here we have the confirmed results then. It's a pole position for CJB in his 2nd race in the league. I must say I don't know much about this guy, but I saw he qualified 3rd last week. Did have a DNF, so he hasn't got any points on the board, but a pole position means that he's got 1 bonus point to show for this one. Then Dalking Suomi following after, ahead of Jardier, the championship leader. Benisili, Mr. Van Omen, Leon the sick one, ADS, Villalobos, and Gamisuke in the top 10 now. Dihidi in 11th, then Tapek, Nagrom, Rudders, Bo, Tudesabak, JK, Scott, Shooter, Lusty, and then in 21st place, the only man who will need to gain positions in the race if he wants to score any points, that is Dakusa at the back of the field.
Yep, just having a look through the cars as well. Scott is the only Bentley in this race. I believe he does have a teammate somewhere along the line. We do also have a Cadillac in the form of Dahidi as well. He seems to be driving that around, so that'll be an interesting car to look out for.
He must change his car then?
Quite possibly.
Because he did start in the Z4.
Yep, and he is.
Of course, you can change car once a season at the cost of losing all your championship points you've scored up until that point. But for the Heidi, that wasn't really a problem because he didn't have any points so far with 3 DNFs in his first in the 3 races he's done this season. Quite a turnaround from being the runner-up last season and a very close challenger to Jardier. It's really been a nightmare start for the Heidi season, you have to say. But maybe the Cadillac can be what turns it around for him.
Yep, quite potentially. But there we see the grid then. We've just got this 2-minute period at the start of the race which allows the drivers to double check their pit strategies, make sure that they've got the right setup applied to the car before we actually go to the green. But we will not be going racing on the green. We will instead be doing a manual rolling start. So the guys will poodle around for a lap, keeping their tyres and brakes nice and warm. And then at the start of the 2nd lap is when we shall be going racing.
Indeed. And look at that lovely grid of differently coloured cars. There's a bit of yellow, there's a bit of green. The usual racing colours, but it's good to see the Lemon Lambos starting this race in 4th and 6th with Jardier and Mr. Van Omen. But it is CJB on pole position, and I'm very interested to see what he can do. I wonder if I'm going to try and find out if he has any previous AOR history. Could just be me.
Someone did mention Season 4 champion. Not Season 4, PS4 champion. Somewhere along the line.
Right. Yes, he does have a lot of messages on the forum. And he is a 2-time PS4 champion, so he's moved over from the PS4.
Yep, so
I would have known that actually, because it was probably me that added his forum title to say that he was a 2-time champion. Yeah, I can't remember every name, but there's thousands of people on the forum. So I do apologize for that, Mr. CJB, but it's nice to have you over on the PC side, and certainly making your mark early on in your PC career, which is very nice to see.
Yep, hopefully he can get a good result. Obviously he's leading the pack, so he's going to be the man who's going to dictate when the race actually begins, as it is signified by the leader putting their foot down within an acceleration zone. But the guys will just poodle around at a relatively low speed at the moment. Just make sure that everybody is feeling all good, and it's good to see that Mr. Van Omen is there rolling as well, because usually he has run into a technical issue by now, so it seems like he's got his things sorted, so hopefully he can have a good and enjoyable race as well. If we look a little bit further down the grid, there is a lot of Lamborghinis in that top 10. In fact, all of them are Lamborghinis except for one, who comes in the form of Villalobos in the Z4, as we see there in 9th place.
Interesting, yeah. So Villalobos was initially the highest teammate. It was last season he was the highest teammate, both driving the Z4. I think Hadi had a different teammate at the start of this season, potentially. I can't quite remember, but either way, that's the only remaining Z4 after we had a lot of Z4s on the grid in Season 10. That's quite interesting, but I guess the calendar for this season doesn't quite suit that car. And look at all these headlights flashing around, weaving side by side to warm their tires, get heat, or keep the heat in the tires as they prepare for the start of the race. A little bit of a gap forming there in the middle of the pack, but hopefully they can close that down by the start. They should now come soon up to the formation point where they'll line up 2 by 2, and then we shall get some action going.
Yep, we will. So I believe the formation point is roughly around this area, so they'll slot into that 2 by 2 formation. They will stop their weaving and they'll stop their heavy brake warming and kind of sit at a steady, slower speed than the rest of the formation lap. And they'll form 2 trains, follow the leaders of these 2 trains. Here we have a slightly better example of it if we catch the right camera angle. So they'll drive round onto the grid, and then once they actually get to the grid, there is a designated acceleration zone, which all the drivers will be aware of. And in that acceleration zone, anywhere in that acceleration zone, the leader can put their foot down, which will signify the start of the race. So jumping on board with Suomi, he is right underneath the rear wing of CJB as CJB puts his foot down, and we are racing here at Dubai.
Oh, and it's going to be a 3-wide situation for P2 already coming down into turn 1. How will this end for the 3 Lambos? 2 of them being teammates going into first corner. Braking later is the car in the middle, and that is Suomi actually taking 2nd place. Dalking going from 2nd down to 4th as he stands with the Audior up to 3rd, and actually Dalking is down to 5th now with Mr. Van Omen trying to get his position as well. Dalking fighting back though, and Jair's up to 2nd, already passing both of the pink and white Lamborghinis. Fantastic start from the championship leader to get himself past both Dalking and Suomi. Dalking did hold on to 4th from Mr. Van Omen in the end, but that is a very exciting and at least clean start at the front of the field.
Yep, it looks like the majority of the drivers are through very nice and cleanly as well. It looked like there was a couple of slight brushes here and there in various other places, but so far the drivers have been very good, very clean. And we can see here that Suomi is pressuring Jardier, wanting to take back that 2nd position as Jardier is going defensive. Dalking's trying to cash in as well, coming from quite a long way back. Has got up alongside his teammate and is actually side by side with him at the moment. He's going to slot back in behind him though. Mr. Van Almen sat there in 5th position as Dalking is right up underneath the rear wing of his teammate Suomi. They do not want to be making contact at this early stage, and they instead just want to settle down at the moment as CJB is running off a few car lengths ahead of Jardier, trying to gain that early lead and a slightly early advantage. as GT3 will be looking to try and pressurise and try and get a lead as early as possible, get as close to that lead position as early as possible to give himself a higher chance. We've got a couple of cars side by side. It's AD Ace and Tapek coming through the penultimate turn, as one of the cars, Leon the sick one, is diving into the pit lane already.
Oh. Well, we can do that, of course. It's you have to do a mandatory pit stop throughout the race at some point, and maybe it's tactical from Leon to do it already at the end of lap 1 to just get it out of the way, get out of the traffic, and get some clean laps in. Of course, he might struggle a bit with tires towards the end of the race, but I think around this track and these conditions as well, we're probably not expecting any tire changes anyway. So potentially a good move there from Leon to get himself out of traffic early on.
Yep, he's now actually trundling down the pit lane and coming out to the exit. So yeah, possibly just trying to free himself up with some clear areas. We've got some more side-by-side action with Nagrom and also Dahidi. Dahidi and the Cadillac in front of him, as Nagrom was having a little bit of a look there, but he's got to be careful that he doesn't come under too much pressure from Lusty behind, who also has the Kuza, other M6s, and another couple of cars further up the field who are going side by side. I think that might have been JK and also F.O.O.L. F.O.O.L has made up a couple of positions at the start here. I believe he started down in 15th or 16th place, and F.O.O.L is now actually pressuring JK coming down this back straight, as they are now side by side. It looks like the F.O.O.L does have the run on JK, but JK is going to have the inside line coming into this rather tricky and rather acute right-hander. There's a little bit of contact there between the two as JK pushes F.O.O.L out wide, but F.O.O.L is trying to keep his nose in. He is still fighting for that position, but for the moment he's going to have to slot in behind and try and mount an attack elsewhere. Yeah,
slightly naughty there from JK, really. Didn't fully leave F.O.O.L a full car width. Was a little bit on the curb. I think it was hard but just about fair on that one, and he keeps hold of his 12th place. Of course, the battling means that they're falling a little bit off rudders up in 11th place. Here we are back with 8 at the Ace, running in P7 at the moment after fending off Tapek earlier on, and he's now chasing after Benizili. Did I see another braking board flying through the air there? Or
yep, Benizili just smashed that one to pieces.
Like yeah, I think it might have been Benizili who took out the one in qualifying as well that I saw. So he doesn't like braking boards, it would seem. But he's running well, at least in the race, in 6th position. And very close at the front so far. CJB is a second ahead of Jadier, but nobody's really breaking away to any major extent at the moment, which is good to see, of course. We want a close and competitive race. And I think any time that Jadier is not in first place, we're probably looking at a battle for the lead at some point.
Yep, we've got a couple more drivers in the pits as well. Villaboss is in here, Dahidi, and also Shooter 80 is also in the pits. So they're making their pit stops relatively early. Leon is there trundling away. It seems like he's got a decent amount of space in front of him. 16 seconds up to Dakuza up in front. So he's got some nice clear air to bang in some nice qualifying laps and see if he can potentially gain some positions. Dowking has actually got himself a penalty, a 2-second penalty in fact. So he has been a little bit naughty somewhere with the track limits and has picked up that penalty and hasn't been able to clear it. And actually Benizili is looking to be pressurising Mr. Van Olmen just in front of him for 5th position.
Indeed, he's getting slightly closer here. Certainly within slipstream range and within the range where he will be distracted by the Lamborghini in front of him. Is CJB in the Lamborghini out of interest? I didn't quite look. Yes, so he's in the Lamborghini. So is that everyone in the top 6, 7, 8? 9?
I believe so now. there was a BMW Z4 in there. He started in 9th position, but it seems like he's lost a load of... I think it was Villaboss, but he's obviously made his stop at the beginning of this lap, so he has now obviously dropped out of the top 10, but we may see him back up there later.
So everyone in the top 9 are running a Lamborghini at the moment, which is giving me sort of flashbacks to season 8, the first season of Project Cars 2 with the Ferrari, where everyone towards the front of the field anyway was in the Ferrari usually. Seems like the Lambo is clearly the preferred choice, and it's working well around this circuit as well. But that means, of course, that every driver in this pack are in equal machinery. Only the setup will be the difference between them. and of course how they drive. So could make for even closer races than if they were in different cars. And you know, in these kind of leagues, we do like to see a bit of car variance as well.
Yep. Also seeing JK has also got a penalty. It's just a 1 second penalty. Whoa! He's going to miss his braking point at somewhere along the line. It's gone very, very deep. That means he's lost the position to his teammate Dowking.
And missed it as well.
Yep. Suomi's just taken out a brake marker board in his recovery back to the track. Yep. As you say, Mr. Van Omen has just lost the position to Benazili, potentially running very, very deep there. So a number of drivers starting to make a few mistakes, obviously using brake marker boards as their usual reference points, and then once those reference points have been taken away, they start to struggle a little bit.
Yeah, it's such a distraction. When just running in the zone and he used to braking at, say, the first braking board that appears, and suddenly that braking board is actually the second one.
Yep.
Because the first one is gone. So yeah, ooh, a little wiggle there from Bo as well, losing the rear slightly in his BMW. No, that's a Mercedes coming out of there. So it's going to lose him some time on the cars battling ahead of him, which is JK trying to pull a move on Rodders, coming onto the main straight, and he's going to be very much in striking distance, right underneath the rear wing of that Mercedes ahead of him. Looking to the inside, will he be late on the brakes? Nah, I think he's just backed out of it, thought better of it, didn't quite have the confidence needed as we got another side-by-side. Scott in that huge Bentley on the inside of the Lamborghini of Nagrom, who's gone slightly wide on the exit, and that has allowed Scott to get 13th position. Good battling here in the midfield on lap 6 out of 30.
Yep, I think that may have actually been a defensive move from Scott, potentially, as I believe I saw him there lurking around in 13th position earlier when looking through the standings. It doesn't appear that any other drivers at the moment have actually gone and made their pit stops. Leon and also Villabos both in the 56s, so is the Heidi actually as well, basically on pace with the leader CJB, and CJB's actually gone and lost 4/10 there to Jardier on the previous lap. The gap is still lurking around that 1 to 1.5 second mark at the moment, so Jardier very much keeping pace with CJB, who's trying to set that out front. Suomi still trying to pressurise Dowking after losing out on his position from running deep in the hairpin of turn 10 that we saw on the previous lap. Just having a look at some of the other battles. AD Ace has actually closed up onto the back of Mr. Van Orman, as we can see there. Battle for 6th position, and Benazili isn't too far up the road either.
Indeed. It's actually quite an interesting team battle going on here as well. We haven't really mentioned the team championship much this season. But the team of Miss Van Orman and Jardier are at 1 point in the championship ahead of the team of Dalking and Suomi. And of course, all of these drivers are in sort of the top 6 at the moment. So that's a very close championship battle there, which we haven't really touched on. That's worth keeping in mind as well. So we're watching ADA still chasing the back of Mr. Van Orman now. Of course, he was chasing Benazili before, but after Mr. Van Orman made that little mistake on the braking, he is now turned into ADA's next potential victim. And shaping him up a little bit through this left-hander. So got a long straight ahead of him. Gotta be confident on the brakes though to get him from this sort of distance. And I think ADS will probably have to stay patient a little bit longer, giving Mr. Van Orman a little look in the mirrors just to let him know he's there as Van Orman slides through the apex of that right-hander. And I think Van Orman is a little bit flustered potentially after his mistake earlier. He certainly doesn't look as fast as he was at the start of the race. Yeah,
and he just needs to find his rhythm and get his head down. Obviously he needs to pay attention to AD Ace behind him and try not to get too distracted, like he did slightly in the turn 10 hairpin. But obviously as these brake marker boards are actually falling as well to a number of drivers, obviously needs to make sure that he's paying attention and is actually referencing the right part of the track, as ADH runs a little bit wide out there. Just beyond the white line, you need to be careful that he won't pick up a penalty, as I believe that Mr. Van Almen has now also picked up a penalty as well. Dowking's now actually got 5 seconds. Mr. Van Almen has 2 seconds. JK is still there on 1 second, as Lusty now comes into the pit lane from 15th position. So another guy making a relatively early stop. This will be a free position for Leon the Sick One, who is still around about the pace of those leaders at the top and sharp end of the field.
Yeah, I'm going to try and keep an eye on how much time Lusty loses by going through the pit lane, because he was 25 seconds roundabout of the lead, I believe, when he was in the pit entry. Leon is 30 seconds off the lead, so if Lusty's pit stop is longer than 30 seconds, Leon is actually the net leader. But let's see when we get an update on Lusty's gap from the lead. I don't think that'll happen for a little bit yet.
Yeah, it should start coming down. There you go, you got 45 seconds. So if you do the quick maths on that, we'll pick up some more action from near the front of the pack. Looks like the guys are just going through the phase at the moment of just settling in and basically just turning laps, thinking a little bit more about the strategy rather than really fighting and pushing for the on-track battles. But Suomi's not too far from his teammate at the moment, and actually you can see there just in that one shot, the top 4 drivers obviously were riding on board with 4th position. But we can see there Dowking in front, Jardier is the lemon Lamborghini in front, and then the car that we're just catching very small slight glimpses of, that is our race leader CJB.
And he's doing a very good job out in front at the moment, running very consistent pace with Jardier and Dowking and Suomi as well, to be honest. All of these guys running very consistent and close pace at the moment. Just look at these lap times now. CJB 1:56.071. Jardier basically the same time with a .046. Dowking and Suomi both a couple of tenths off those top 2 drivers. And then a few more tenths lost to Benicili and Mr. Van Almen, but there's not any clear breakaway yet from CJB. His gap to Jardier stabilized for quite a few laps now. Scott has pulled away from Dakusa, and he's wait, no.
He's lost the position to Nagrom.
He's lost the position to Nagrom, yeah, but weren't they battling for 13th before?
They were, but I believe possibly 1 or 2 drivers making a pit stop in front of them has obviously gifted them the position. Villabos is obviously one of those drivers, because he was up there in the top 10.
Yeah,
but
true.
That was a fair bit earlier on in the race, but it was a while that we actually picked up these 2 drivers in their little battle.
Well, in that case, yes, as you say, Nagrom has gotten through then on the Bentley. 12th place at the moment for him. But keeping in mind that everyone from 15th place down has actually been through the pit lane. So Leon is the lead car out of those who have pitted, as we got a battle for 6th place. ADS has properly caught up to Mr. Van Almen now, and is actually challenging him, trying to move up the inside. Oh, I'm glad Van Almen saw him coming, because that could have ended badly. But ADS, despite that tight line, has got a very good exit out of the corner. They're going to be side by side, going into the next braking zone now. Very close indeed, a bit of door banging. They got holding hands pretty much coming into the braking point. And oh my goodness, AD is going to try to go around the outside. Oh, he's run a little bit too deep. Has to get back underneath. Good defending from Mr. Van Almen there to just do what he needs to do. Brake at the right point. ADS was a little bit too optimistic, but he will still have a good chance now coming out of the main straight. If he gets a good exit out of the final corner, certainly looks like he's the apex very nicely indeed. Actually underneath the slipstream of the Lemon Lambo in front of him. Can he get that slipstream effect quickly enough? He's certainly closing a little bit, it looks like anyway. Pulling to the inside. Will he be daring on the brakes? No. Thinks better of it. And the battle lives on as Van Almen defends P6.
Yep, very good driving between the 2 there. Obviously, there was the slight holding of hands, but not really too much more than that, which is good and fair stuff to see. Just having a look at the drivers at the top. With their lap times, they're still in and around those low 56s, as Leon is kind of mid 56s. ADS gets very, very close there to Leon the Sick One. Kind of having a little bit of a look around the outside. If he can get himself set up and tucked in nicely into the apex, he could have a good run coming off this corner. Seems like Mr. Van Omen's done a decent job himself and seems to be eking away just a tiny little wincy bit from ADAce at the moment. He's not really picking up the slipstream to really challenge coming into turn 10 hairpin here. Both of them diving onto the brakes as Mr. Van Omen takes the slightly more traditional tighter line.
The Dalking line, as we have established earlier in the season.
Yeah, but it's good to take that tighter line going into that corner. It just kind of decreases the radius of the turn and it kind of helps to settle the car a little bit, as if you turn in too early with too much speed, you do tend to lose the rear. So it's a viable line to do quite regularly in order to avoid losing control of the car.
Yeah, well, it certainly worked out well for Mr. Venom on that occasion. He's kept himself out of trouble at this area of the track where they were battling last time around. ADA's not able to put the same amount of pressure on lap 10 as he was able to on lap 9. So Venom maybe getting back into his stride a little bit in that particular battle, as JK now is right on the back of Rodders. I think he's been on the back of Rodders for quite a while now, and like Mr. Van Omen, Rodders doing a good job to keep his position. And I think JK missed apex slightly there as well, so I don't think that's going to be the best run for him coming down the straight. I mean, Rodders moving to the inside line, probably just to try and break the slipstream a little bit, which didn't work as JK just moved after him, but he will be too far back to make the move anyway. So Rodders as well leaves to fight on and hold on to the top 10 position as it stands. Probably not in net top 10 since Leon is only 10 seconds down the road having pitted, but certainly could be some more solid points for Rodders, who we saw running so well, of course, back in the Nordschleife race.
Yep,
a couple of weeks ago.
I was going to say, Dowking's made a mistake somewhere along the line. He's lost an awful lot of time on this lap, and he's now dropped down into 5th position. He was previously, shall I say, holding 3rd position, but he's now reasonably close to striking distance to Mr. Van Omen and also ADAce. So we've now got a little bit of a free car train here. It'll be interesting to see just how much time he did lose once they actually crossed the start-finish line on the next lap. It seems like, oh no! Dowking has gone and lost the car once again. He's gone and lost a whole bunch of positions to ADAce, and Mr. Van Omen has now also lost the position to Tapak, and he's rejoined the track in 8th place. Possible rear tyres, possibly overheating. I'm not really too sure. It just seemed like he lost the rear end of the car coming out of the exit in that traction zone.
Yeah, it's hard to say what exactly caused it, but certainly it was the traction that seemed to be the problem. The spinning up the rears, and around he went. So Dalking, I mean, we've seen so many times already this season that Dalking is super, super fast, but he has been a little bit inconsistent so far. He's got a couple of podiums, but he's got an 11th place and a DNF from last week, and seems to be making some mistakes here in the early part of this race as well. Down in 8th place, actually that makes that 7th as ADAce is in the pit lane for a quick little mandatory stop for him. Ooh, he's stationary for quite a while.
There we go in. There we go. He's actually gone and lost the position to Leon, the sick one, who's is now catching up to Dakuza as well. Dakuza's now only a 2.5 seconds, whereas previously probably a good 8-9 laps now. The gap was around 16 seconds, so a good 2 seconds a lap that he's been lapping quicker than Dakuza to close that gap down. But now that he is actually coming towards the traffic, his times may suffer a little bit unless the guys do start making stops rather conveniently in front of him. But at the moment he's still on that pace of the lead trio, I want to say. Jardier seems like he's closing up onto the back.
Jardier is closing massively all of a sudden.
Yeah, CJB. He's taken a good 3/10 out on the previous lap. He's probably looks like he's taken out more time this lap. Possibly some tyre issues starting to settle in for a number of the drivers.
Which is interesting. Haven't had too many tyre issues earlier in the race, as Jardier is very wide there, but I think that might be an ideal line anyway for that particular corner, as you have to take a very late apex to set yourself up for the right-hander, as we saw there. And yeah, Jardier has certainly closed in a lot on this lap on the CJB, who had kept him for, well, outside of 1 second behind until now in the race, but all of a sudden Jardier almost within striking distance, and as I expected earlier on, we're about to have a battle for the lead of this race. Jodder, who's had only, well, I'll say only 2 wins in 4, but you know, he had 6 in 10, I believe, last season. So looking to add to that, of course, CJB looking for his first points of the season in his 2nd race, and what a result that would be if he was able to hold off the reigning 2-time champion, as we got to side-by-side Dalking making the move on Gamisuke, is that? It is indeed.
Oh dear, actually Dalking actually cut across the curb on the inside there. That could potentially be a slowdown penalty that he may need to clear relatively quickly. He is getting very close to the rear bumper of Gamisuke, as we can see jumping on board in the bumper camera. Hopefully he has managed to clear that penalty. He isn't going to get any more. Seems like a whole number of bunch of drivers down the tail end of the field have also picked up penalties as well. We shall take a look at those in a second, as Dalking is looking to pick up the slipstream and potentially retake that 7th position away from Gamisuke as they come into the braking zone now. Looks like that Gamisuke has nailed his marks and is going to defend that one as Dalking gets very sideways coming out the exit of the corner. Certainly seems like he is struggling with traction issues, but not too many traction issues, as he's now actually sailing past Gamisuke around the outside into the braking zone of the turn 12 right-hander, and that is now a position gained, although there was a flash of lights there from Gamisuke. I don't think he was particularly happy with that change of position, potentially.
Well, I think most drivers would not be too happy. Yes, oh my goodness, Dalking nearly losing the rear again. Coming through that corner, and this looks like he's going to keep the position. I mean, it was a result of Gamisuke running wide previously in the lap. Is how he got past him. He just ran a little bit wide in the exit of turn 11, I believe. But Dalking, after getting through, almost made a mistake again. Almost the same mistake as last time when he lost the rear. He's had a 360 spin. This time at least he saved the car and is able to keep hold of 7th place. And his next target then will be Tapek, who is looking for his first points of the season, looking for his first finish of the season, running in 6th place at the moment. So far, so good for the teammate of the Undersick one.
I was just about to say, am I right in thinking that Tapek has done a pretty good start to the race? I think he was it just outside the top 10?
Yeah, I believe he did start 12th actually.
Yeah, so he's now up into 6th position. Obviously, a few of the guys who were ahead of him have made pit stops. Leon, the 6th one, who has now got past Dakuza, but is coming up onto the back of Nagrom and Scott. Scott and Nagrom have actually switched positions now, as well as previously when we last caught the 2 drivers in front of Leon who we were on board with. They were the other way round. So these guys have been battling away off camera. But yeah, Leon the 2nd one will be looking to get past these guys relatively quickly in order to basically keep his pursuit. That's contact with the back of Nagrom. That's going to shove him wide. That's very unfortunate. I think Scott got scared a little bit there as well, that Leon was potentially going to come in and make contact. Leon does the right thing though, and does back out of it and let Nagrom rejoin the track in front of him. Although he is now on the outside, I don't think Nagrom's going to fight this one too hard and let Leon go, obviously being the faster driver. And he's looking to work his way up through the field, but that will have halted Leon the 2nd's progress a little bit and cost him some time to the guys up ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it was just way too late on the brakes, certainly compared to Nagrom anyway. Maybe that's where he usually brakes, but Nagrom was way earlier, and as the car behind, you have to adapt your braking relative to the car you're chasing when you're close to someone, and that's a little bit of touching, of course. Hopefully no major damage to either Leon or Nagrom's car there. As we now skip a little bit further up the field to Rudders, who is chasing Dalking still, of course. Wait, Dalking's behind Gamisuke again. Yeah,
he's lost a good 3 seconds or so on the previous lap, so probably another mistake somewhere along the line, it would seem.
It would indeed. As I think the leaders are, yeah, the gap between the top two is now down to 0.2 of a second, or even less than that. As Jadier is right up underneath CJB for the lead of the race, and he's defending as hard as he possibly can. Oh, Jadier slotting in behind on the exit, but this is a battle for the lead of the race. The veteran in the PC Tier 1 League, the reigning two-time champion against the two-time PS4 champion who has only just come over to the PC platform. This is a great battle between two AOR champions, and Jadier is the man on the move at the moment. Oh, getting ever so close to the back of CJB's car, but no touching and no position change.
Yep, it seems Jadier is wanting to expect the rear internals of CJB's engine, getting very, very close in the penultimate corner, but he has lost a couple of car lengths now as they come down the start-finish straight. And these guys probably thinking about pit stops too much at this point as they're battling, hitting the brakes at the 100 brake marker border. CJB goes a little bit deep. That could potentially be a little bit of an advantage towards Jadier as they come through the very fast long right-hander of turns 3 and 4. There's no real passing opportunity here, neither as they're going to be into 5 or 6 as they come now through the long right-hander, decelerating the car and braking into the rather tricky turn 7 as we see there CJB floating the rear end of the car around a little bit to help get that extra little bit of rotation and holding on to the corner. This is going to be a good opportunity here for Jadier if he can get a decent run coming out the exit of this turn, but he's going to need the slipstream and potentially try and get himself somewhere under the braking zone to try and make a move into turn 10.
And here he comes, looking to the inside a little bit. Brakes late, but not quite late enough unless CJB makes a little mistake mid-corner and goes wide, and Jadier is through into the lead of this race at Dubai. A swap for position on lap 16 halfway through the race, and Jadier has now got the upper hand in the fight for the win. CJB just getting a little bit scared potentially off his line or just losing the back end as he tried to turn in, and that has put him behind the man who is so hard to pass. I mean, Jadier is hard to defend from, but once Jadier gets into the lead, it's even harder to get it back.
Yep, did you work out earlier as well how long the pit stop time was roughly as CJB is going to do coming into the pits? I was thinking it's like one of these two drivers will probably want to dive into the pits now. They don't really want to be fighting for too much longer, as if it is around 30 odd seconds as we were predicting earlier, Leon the sick one is right in and around that mark. He's currently about 33 seconds behind Jadier, so it'd be interesting to see where CJB comes out, so I think we'll stick with him in this.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a bit less than 30 seconds. So I think CJB should still be ahead of Leon the sick one. Question is by how much? As he rolls very slowly down the pit lane. This must feel like such an eternity for these drivers as Gamisuke comes into the pits as well. I believe he was running around 7th place as he came in. CJB now on the pit exit as Leon the sick one has just started going down the straight, so CJB will have a few seconds, not too many, about 3 or 4 maybe, down to Leon the sick one. So Leon certainly in with a shot here at getting in the mix with the top 2, if he can turn on the pace a little bit more than what he's done so far in the race. I think CJB will be pleased to see that he's still in sort of a net. Well, not necessarily net lead, but certainly net second at worst.
Yep, and it'll be interesting to see how Jadier actually reacts to this as well. If he does stay out on track and keeps going for another few laps, he could potentially secure this win, as CJB is coming up behind Roddies. There's about 1.5 seconds. So if Jadier was to pit now and basically has a completely identical pit stop to ZJB, he'll come in between the two, but obviously have Rodders right there in front of him. So I don't know if Jadier will have this kind of information or not. I don't know whether he'll be watching the stream whilst also racing at the same time to get an idea of the gap. Obviously he is staying out at the moment as he continues round for another pass. He's done a 56.0 as well, so another good, very quick lap time. Obviously we won't get an idea as to what CJB's previous lap time was, as he spent the good first part of it in the pit lane, so it will have lost time there. But this isn't really playing into CJB's hands with Rodders right here in front of him.
Yeah, yeah, this could potentially cost CJB quite a bit, unless he can get a nice easy move down the straight, but I don't think he's going to be close enough. And I mean, Rodders is under no obligation to move out of the way here, of course. CJB brakes really, really late, but it's going to now be behind Rodders at a not ideal part of the track. Quite twisty going through this first sector. Turning right here into sweeping left as well, as Mr. Van Ommen has been through the pit lane.
Seems like a very long lap stop.
Yeah,
he's losing a lot of positions from this, so possible change of tyres?
Really far down, yeah, he's had a very long one. Down in 18th position.
Yeah, he's now...
Yeah, he's had a problem, I think.
Yeah, possibly. He's now around about 1 minute behind the race leader. And obviously he was well within 30 seconds previously. I think probably around 10 seconds to the leader. Yep. So
CJB just gone past Rodders. Just noticed on the there he goes. Looked like he might have been around the outside. The way they come up that corner. So CJB makes that move, but he would surely have been held up a little bit by doing so. Potential battle as well for 4th position up the road. Tapek and Dalking close together. Dalking, of course, trying to work his way back after his earlier mistakes. He's got that 5-second penalty as well, which won't do him any good, but he can't think about that now. He just needs to think about trying to get through that green Lamborghini ahead of him. Tapek. Ooh, he's going to try into the final corner. There's a little bit of contact there as Tapek turns in and is forced wide as a result of Dalking's car being in the way of the apex. And they're going to run side by side now down the straight. Dalking has got the advantage with the inside line, although it seems like Tapek has got a little bit more straight line speed potentially. They're going to be very close though going into the first corner. Dalking with the ideal line and taking that position in the end. Question is, can he stay ahead of Tapek without making a mistake again?
Yep, Tapek's turned in a little late and a little bit deep there, going into the long right-hander, turns 3 and 4. So that's going to cost him a few car lengths, as we can see. As there's now a visual gap, as Jardier is keeping the pace on up the front with a 55.907. Only Suomi's going to beat that, but only by a good 0.004 of a second. Where is CJB in his previous lap as a 57.2, so CJB obviously fighting with Rodders a little bit, or having to try and get past Rodders, has gone and lost a good 1.5 seconds or so to Jardier with that. So yeah, I think this could be a game set match potentially for Jardier, with coming out ahead of CJB after Jardier's mandatory pit stop.
Yeah. Certainly, and I think Jardier is in no rush to make his pit stop either. He's just running around in clean air up the front, just minding his own business now and enjoying life as the leader of the race. Still putting in good times, of course, and you know he will know where he'll end up if he goes into the pit lane. He'll probably end up in this mix that CJB is in right now, and he's going to catch straight up to Tapek, who's immediately drop off the back of Dalking after being passed. So Tapek struggling a little bit, unless it's just Dalking and CJB being really, really fast, which of course they are. But yeah, CJB, I don't think that's quite worked out for him relative to Jardier, the way it's going at the moment with the traffic.
No, unfortunately it's quite difficult to actually predict where it is that you actually come out as Scott is diving into the pits in the Bentley. So we'll see where he comes out and what kind of changes he actually makes, as Mr. Van Ommen is down there in 18th place. Whilst we're here, actually, we'll take a look at the penalties that the guys at the back of the field do have. So Heidi's still got his 2-second pit stop time penalty. JK still has his 1 second penalty. Mr. Van Ommen has now got an 8-second penalty with 2 Desert Pack on 3 seconds, and Lusty up on 1. Bow's still got his 2 seconds and Dalking has still got his 5.
Indeed. So then Scott come out of the pit lane, and I think he was just getting passed there by 2 Desert Pack on the exit, and starting just in ahead of Lusty as well. So there's some close battles going on for the minor points positions as well. Of course, points being scored down to P20 in the race, so everyone's fighting for something. Every position you get up is worth some extra points for the championship, and the higher up you go, the more points the position will be worth, of course. CJB now is trying to get past Tapek, drawing some inspiration from what Dalking did a few laps ago. Or will he make the move earlier in the lap? Dalking had to wait until the start of the next one. CJB now, oh, is so close. And this is such a long corner as well, such an annoying one to be stuck behind a car that you think you're faster than. This is where Dalking ended up diving up the inside of Tapek earlier on. CJB chooses another strategy, waits until the main straight, tries to line him up on the exit. Doesn't quite work out. I think it could have been closer there if he had nailed it completely, and it might actually be tricky for CJB to get the move done into first corner as well. He has to brake very much later, and he doesn't get the job done. So maybe Dalking's naughty dive bomb move was actually a better way to go, even though Tapek probably was a little bit annoyed by it. And there's another move, of course, probably to come quite soon. Leon the Sick One, who's been running very solid pace in this race as well, on the back of Brothers, who has yet to make his pit stop.
Yeah, I think that final corner is quite tricky because when you're that close behind someone, you're always trying to set yourself up for the better exit, but I think in doing so, you kind of end up compromising yourself a little bit and lose a car length or 2, just because you try and focus on the apex so much. Yep. Ooh, 2 Desert Pack is coming under threat here from Scott. Scott trying to look around the outside as 2 Desert Pack is defending the inside. Still side by side, but now Scott does settle in behind, so good defense there by 2 Desert Pack. Scott has also come back out ahead of Nagram. I did see that Nagram had dived into the pits, but is now actually behind Lusty in the M6 there. So it seems like he's lost a position, as I believe Lusty was one of the drivers who made one of the very early pit stops in the opening 5 laps. So seems like we've got a few battles starting to form all around the track. Benazili closing up onto the back of Suomi, as it seems like Suomi's made a mistake on the previous lap and lost a couple of seconds.
2.4 seconds slower than Benazili on the previous lap, so that is a mistake. I think Suomi's pace throughout the race so far has been very solid. Very close to Benazili and not too far off Jadir and CJB, but yeah, some kind of mistake there on the previous lap, maybe a bit of a overstay moment or half spin. As this is even closer now. Leon the Sick One shaping up Rodgers going down the straight, and I think he has got a pretty decent run. Still got half of the straight to go to try and close that a little bit extra to get enough confidence on the brakes. Rodgers trying to brake late and actually swooping around the outside to defend the position. Good late braking from Rodgers there, not being faced at all by the charging Lambo coming through behind him, nearly sticking his nose up the inside through the fast right-hander, and that could have been dangerous. Oh, Leon there reacting well to Rodgers' car sitting on the apex, even though Leon carried so much more speed into that corner against slotting his nose up the inside, but Rodgers just leaving the exact minimum amount of room that he needs to, making it hard for Leon to get through. Good defensive drive from Rodgers at the moment, and Leon probably a little bit frustrated. Sometimes when you're in a position like this, you're fighting someone who you're not really in a battle with in the long term in the race, because you know the other guy has to pit at some point. It's a little bit annoying when you end up in a hard battle like this against them, but of course Rodgers has every right to try and keep him behind, and for us it's a bit extra action as Jadir from the lead of the race is into the pits.
Yep, nice little flash of the lights there as he comes down. I'm sure after CJB's previous battling and trying to fight through the field a little bit, he's got the lead secured. That is not his pit guy. This is his pit guy here.
I thought he missed his box there and realised.
Yep, there's Suomi, who is the other driver who is coming into the pits. So he pulls up rather nicely. Yeah, I think Leon the Sick One kind of just yeah, poking his nose in a little bit too much and costing himself time. He's actually gotten alongside and round the outside of Rodders, coming through the penultimate turn as we just picked them up real quick. And it looks like that Leon the Sick One has managed to secure that position and will now hold it.
Suomi has jumped CJB, or has he go to those
Not
guys?
quite.
As Suomi? No, yeah, okay, yeah, Suomi was still in the exit. I thought it was out of the pits and suddenly they swapped around, but CJB has lost, as you can see, a lot of seconds to Jarier. That is 4 seconds now between the guys who were previously battling for the lead of the race, as that was an interesting line from Suomi there.
Is that a bit of lag that's going on? It seems and looks a little bit like it, but yeah, as you're saying, CJB losing a whole ton of time with the battling, which is very unfortunate. Let's take a look at a little bit of luck down the field, picking up the Heidi's, trying to close up on Gamersuk in front of him, but also has Taepak for relatively close company behind after Taepak's.
Just came out of the pit lane.
Yes,
so
he has.
Dropped down to 13th position then.
Yeah, Bo's up there in 10th place. JK is chasing down Mr. Van Orman after Mr. Van Orman had that rather lengthy pit stop. He's down in 14th position at the moment. Obviously he was up there in the top 5, top 6 positions earlier on in the race. So very unfortunate for him with that one. Scott is still stuck behind 2 Desert Pack, with Lusty in the M6 behind, and then Nagrom in the other Lamborghini in 19th position behind them, with a little 4-car train that we have going on here. Nice mix of cars too.
Yeah, certainly it tends to be a nicer mix of cars towards the back of the field usually. Maybe there's a reason for that, but it's also nice to see actually that all 21 cars that were sat at the start grid of this race are still running, and all in relatively decent shape as well. Yakuza at the back of the field, the only man out of the points at the moment, is only a minute and 13 off the lead, so no lapped cars so far. No one has had a huge amount of damage to the extent that I've completely dropped off the pack. That of course is nice to see. We do like to see that drivers get a little bit of racing for their time when they turn up to these league races.
Yep, and Yakuza isn't actually too far behind Shooter either. He's hanging around just over that 1 second mark, so it's a little bit of a battle there for the final points position, as we are currently watching Nagrom, and actually Scott's getting very, very close to the rear of 2 Desert Pack coming into the final turn, but Nagrom looks to be slightly closer out of the two. He's chasing down that M6 in front of him. Doesn't really seem to be making any real ground onto the back of his car, so he's not going to threaten him into turn 1, as we see up ahead that Scott's had a slightly better run than 2 Desert Pack through the first turn, which is allowing him to close up and gain a car length or so onto the back of the R8 in front of him, but there's no real overtaking opportunity through this section of the track. Your best bet is to get a clean exit coming out of turn 8 and 9 and onto the long back straight.
Yeah, and they're coming towards that section now. Scott taking a tighter line than Desert Pack, coming through there, and here we go onto the back straight, I guess you can call it. It's got very close indeed, and that Bentley does quite often have decent straight line speed, but will it have enough to shape up the Audi? Going for the outside move is Scott, braking very, very late, gets a little bit out of shape though, cuts underneath as Audi is quite slow through the corner. Got again with the outside line, but goes for the cutback line instead, and that seems to have been a good move, as it's going to be right alongside, coming into the oh my goodness, right-hander. But again, he's always on the outside line, and that is not where he wants to be.
Yep, that's one of the good things about that sequence of corners, is it's very, very good for switchbacks, and if you can make the switchback work, you do tend to gain ground on the other person and help yourself coming into the next corner. Scott is there going down the inside of 2 Desert Pack, as they both make a little bit of contact, both getting a little bit of out of shape. It also seems that Nagrom has managed to get past Lusty somewhere and has closed right up onto the back of these two drivers as they are battling and trading little bits of paint and bodywork as two Desert Packers all over the track coming through the final turn. Nagrom is now surely got the best run out of the three drivers as we're going to potentially be going three wide into turn one. Who is going to be the later of the late breakers? It seems like Scott may potentially be in the pound position seat. Nagrom trying to go all the way around the outside, hang it here, but it doesn't quite work. Two Desert Packers still holding on for the moment as Scott is hanging right onto the back of him. Nagrom holding his ground and remaining in 7th position. This is going to allow Lusty to close back up onto the rear of these guys as well and make it a four-way train as these guys are fighting hard trying to pick up that 15th position off of two Desert Packers, doing a very, very good job of defending and holding on to that 15th place.
Yeah, I mean, after all that, 3 wide into the first corner, they're still in the same positions as they were before. So two Desert Packers certainly doing a brilliant jump at keeping this group behind. It's going to turn into 4-way fight as well, with Lusty catching up as a result of all this battling. And here again, Scott, this time maybe with the inside line, if he can be late enough on the brakes. He was his earliest breaker into turn 1 during the 3 wide, but this time he's quite late. Again though, to Desert Pack just carrying the right amount of speed through the corner, leaving the right amount of room on the apex. Which means Scott is going to find it hard once again, but that was a good cutback. Oh, but he's braked too early! Forced a little bit off the line as well by the Desert Pack. There's just no way past this man.
Yeah, he's defending very, very well. Obviously, two Desert Packers saw the switchback coming. I think Scott wanted to try it again here, hence the early braking, but two Desert Pack basically held his position on the inside there and prevented Scott from actually doing that. Jardier is now right in here, so is Lusty. This is a very, very tight, close 4-car train that we have with only a couple of car lengths between the various different cars. Scott very, very eager to try and get past and up into that 15th position, but the question will be, will he be able to pull away once he does actually make that position gain? I'm actually also wondering if two Desert Packers actually made his pit stop yet. I don't think he has, and he's only got 4 or 5 laps left in this race in order to actually do so. As Scott is looking to the inside, coming into turn 1, is getting his nose up there alongside two Desert Pack, gives him the racing room, but Scott is again not going to be able to pull this move off as two Desert Pack is defending his position absolutely brilliantly.
Yeah. Are you sure Desert Pack hasn't pitted? Because I'd be quite surprised. He'd be very far off the pack if he still has to make a pit stop. But I guess we'll have to wait and see in these last few races. Only 4 laps to go after this one. So Desert Pack is still hanging on. Scott on the inside line, but again you can just see he has to back out of it because the Desert Pack just puts his car in the right place. Now though, this is probably the best run he's got yet on this back straight, as Nagrom is following super closely as well. Could it be another 3 wide potentially? Nagrom a little bit further back this time. Scott in the middle once again. Can he be later on the brakes than he was before? No. To Desert Pack on the inside, and Nagrom's going to potentially get both of them underneath. He at least gets Scott. Oh, Scott, after all of that, trying to outbrake, had to back out completely to not hit to Desert Pack on his inside, and Nagrom has just pounced, very opportunistic, and demoted Scott down to 17th instead.
Yep, this could be only temporarily though, and I think you may actually be right. I think two Desert Pack was one of the earlier pitters. I do remember that Scott and Nagrom were kind of around in these positions earlier on at the start of the races. It looks like two Desert Pack. Oh, a little bit of contact there between Nagrom and Scott. Scott giving him a little bit of a love tap. We do also have Dakusa closing up onto the rear of these guys as well. Surely he's gaining time as these guys are battling and squabbling hard over position. So now it's Nagrom's turn to have a go at two Desert Pack, see if he can get past the brick wall. But it doesn't look like he'll be doing it here into turn 1 this time, as Lusty's actually relatively close and having a slight glance at Scott coming into the braking zone for turn 1.
Yeah, I mean, Scott has been on the attack for so many laps now, and suddenly he's dropped a position instead of completing his mission of gaining one. That must be quite frustrating for the Bentley driver, and yeah, now he's put under pressure by yet another car. So I think the battle has not quite worked out the way Scott would have wanted, but he's still got a few laps to try and make amends for that. But now it's Nagrom on the move then. The next man to challenge to Desert Pack. Will he have better luck against the Audi than than what Scott had. We'll have to wait and see. It's not as close as Scott usually was going onto this main straight. He's still gaining though, gaining quite rapidly actually towards the corner, and he will go for the inside line, but Tedesback not defending, and probably a wise move as he wasn't under pressure enough to really warrant doing that. But Nagrom is on the move.
Yep, seeing if he can try and gain that place. Did also note that Benazili is pitted from the lead of the race and has now come back out in 6th position. So Dowking is now the race leader that we have, but Jardier is only a second behind him. CJB another further 4 seconds back as 2 Desert Pack covering off Nagrom there, coming into the braking zone, forcing Nagrom to back out of that one. As we can see there, Dakusa getting ever closer to the back of Lusty in front of him, as it looks like Lusty, I did think he was going to go for the pits.
Pit lane.
Yeah, but I think it was just a whole ton of oversteer that he had coming through the penultimate corner, which sent him off in the direction of the pit entry. That's going to cost him a good 5-6 car lengths there to the back of Scott. Scott, who is not quite close enough yet again to make a move on Nagrom in front of him. I think Scott has struggled a little bit with the tyres and is, with the battling, has possibly had the tyres drop away from him a little bit and is now struggling, as you've been saying.
Indeed. And the battle carries on. Another little battle here for 12th position. Bo, the back of Tapek. I think Tapek's rather gained that, as he was at 13th place a few laps ago after he came out of the pit lane. And then, of course, Jardier, the net race leader. And will he take the lead? Yes, he will now. Take the actual lead of the race back, as Dowking is the last man to come into the pit. And actually, the second last man, because I believe Rodders still has to pit as well. But Dowking then, let's see how far he's going to drop down. He has, of course, made a few mistakes in this race, which means he's not going to be quite up there with the top guys, as Rodders also makes his pit stop. And here goes Dowking then down to 6th place for the time being. Oh my goodness!
There's been a whole bunch of position changes. Lusty is now threading down the inside of Scott. There's a little bit of wheel banging there, door-to-door action, as it looks like that Nagrom's going to lost the positions to Lusty, Scott, and also Dakusa. Sorry, just trying to think of the names real quick there, as Lusty is coming under a lot of pressure from Scott as Scott dives down the inside. Lusty's braked too deep and has gone way wide. Has gone and lost 3 positions because of that. It's now on the back of the train. 2 Desert Packers getting away, scot-free. Sorry for the pun there, that wasn't intended. He's now pulling away from this train that is squabbling very hard. There's very little between all of these drivers. As you can see, jumping on board with Nagrom as they come down the start-finish straight, and it's now Scott who's going to be the one going defensive into turn 1.
Oh man, what a squabble we have here for the bottom end of the points position.
2 Desert Pack!
Desert Pack is wide, but is far enough ahead to not be challenged, as Nagrom gets a fantastic exit off the corner, but there's nowhere to go in this first part of the lap when you got a car ahead of you. And the train has to just stay in position for the time being until they get back to that back straight, and we can get all sorts of shenanigans hopefully going on all over again. But yeah, Nagrom's been up, challenging to Desert Pack. He's then dropped back a little bit, just like Scott did earlier after challenging to Desert Pack. So I mean, it seems like there's some kind of curse. If you get closer to Desert Pack, you've got to drop positions.
Yep, and it's now Scott having another go, round 2. He's picking up the slipstream here as we're coming down this back straight. We're going to need to pay attention to the leader as well, as he is on the final lap. 2 Desert Pack going defensive to the inside, Scott looking to the outside. Lusty closing up very heavily in the braking zone there. A little bit of contact there between Scott and 2 Desert Pack, I believe, but Scott has got the inside line this time round. Will 2 Desert Pack come back at him though, as he's now got Nagrom having a look to the rear of his car as well. He's going to need to be wary of that, as Nagrom has taken the play from Lusty from his mistake. Very close there between Nagrom and 2 Desert Pack as they come through that right-hander. Scott has now managed to get himself to the front of the train. It looks like that Nagrom may potentially be starting to eke a little bit ahead of 2 Desert Pack, but not quite, as 2 Desert Pack gets later on the brakes. Lusty having a look to the inside here as well. Wanted to cash in on the action. Lusty is stealing the place away from Nagrom. Fantastic battling here in the second to last lap in these final points positions. Race has suddenly come alive, it seems, as Lusty's looking to the outside of Nagram around the final turn. He's not going to quite be able to do it there unless he can take all the exit away from Nagram, as he gets very, very sideways and loses a whole load of traction. That's going to bring Lusty into the game once again as well. He's having a look to the inside coming into turn 1. We will have to jump from this and have a look at the leader sometime very soon to see where he is, as Lusty's making a move down the inside of Nagram. Will he be able to get it done this time? He's going to be on the outside for turn 2. It doesn't look like he has, although he has still got the inside line. Coming through 3 and 4. Don't make contact, not here. Too high speed. And it looks like he's backed out of that position, as well as Dakusa, sorry. And also 2 Desert Pack still going tongue to tongue as well. Jardier, where are you? You're coming out the final turn to complete the race.
What a timing. Yes, here is Jardier then. A race winner for the 3rd time out of 5 attempts so far this season. He takes round 5 at Dubai. CJB was leading the race for the first half. He comes home a couple of seconds behind in 2nd place. Then Suomi in 3rd for the final podium position. Leon the Sick One pitted on the first lap. Didn't quite work out for him, but still 4th place, a solid points haul. Then quite a lot of drivers with penalties. Benny Seeley crossing the line in P5, and I think he'll stay there as he had quite a gap to Villalobos, who comes across in 6th place. Ahead of Dalking, who's had, 5 seconds? He will drop behind the Ace as he comes across. Then Gamisuke is defending actually for Mr. Van Ommen for P9, coming out of the final corner. Can Mr. Van Ommen get a good enough run on the black and green Lambo for the position? No, he cannot. And Bo will be the first man outside of the top 10, and he's not too pleased, it seems, with that one. Rodders just holding off JK for 12th position. Then Tapek weaving across the line, celebrating at P14. Scott, then of course the winner, it seems, of this humongous scrap for 15th position, which was absolutely fantastic to follow in the last 5-10 laps. Scott weaving, he is very pleased to bring his Bentley home in the winner of the battle at the back. And that is it.
And that is going to be the conclusion from round 5 of the AOR GT3 PC Tier 1 League. Obviously, you can see the race results there up on screen. These are after any penalties, post-race penalties have been applied. Then you've also got our championship standings. They've been updated to reflect the latest set of results from round 5. And then, of course, we finally have the season calendar, and you can see there the rounds that are remaining. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you have any comments or questions, then make sure to leave them down in the comments section below. And if you've been enjoying the content that's going up on the channel lately, make sure to hit that subscribe button with the bell notification to ensure you don't miss out on that next video. But until then, thank you very much for watching, have fun, and take care.